a single drone strike, one military base, and a warning that sounded less like diplomacy and more like a line drawn in the sand. A drone struck a base used by Italian forces, and almost immediately, Iran issued a message to other countries: stay out of this conflict. Now, that sentence may sound simple at first: a warning, a strike, a moment in an already tense region. But the implications are anything but simple. Because when a country publicly warns others not to join a war, it means leaders believe the possibility of a wider war is real. And that is exactly where this story begins. But before we get into what Iran said and why the warning matters so much right now, we have to start with the moment that triggered it all: the strike itself. Imagine the setting for a second: a military facility operating in a region already under pressure from broader tensions between Iran and Western countries. Personnel stationed there, routine operations, and then a drone strike hits the base. Italian authorities confirmed it. Their personnel were using that facility when the drone struck. Before we move forward, if you value clear, fact-based news without the noise, take a moment to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an important update. Now, notice something important here. The confirmation from Italian authorities did not arrive as speculation or rumor. It was direct acknowledgement that the facility used by their personnel had been struck by a drone. One strike, one base. But sometimes a single event becomes a signal that something larger may be unfolding, and this moment did not stay isolated for long. Because after the strike, Iranian officials delivered a warning aimed far beyond that single facility. Their message was directed at other countries watching the conflict from the outside. The warning was simple in wording, but heavy in meaning. Iran warned countries to stay out of the war. That statement did not focus only on the drone strike itself. Instead, it addressed something larger: the possibility that additional nations could become involved in the conflict. And when Iranian officials explained the reasoning behind the warning, the language was direct. They said foreign involvement could widen the war and increase instability. Think about that phrasing for a moment: widen the war, increase instability. Those are not casual terms. They describe a scenario where a conflict expands beyond its current boundaries and begins pulling more countries into its orbit. This is the point where a regional confrontation can transform into something much larger. Now pause here for just a moment, because the sequence of events matters. First, a drone strike hits a base used by Italian forces. Then Italian authorities confirm the strike. And soon after, Iran issues a warning aimed at other countries. The order of those moments tells us something about how quickly tensions can escalate. And there's another detail worth considering. The strike occurred in the middle of broader military tensions involving Iran and Western countries in the region. Those tensions did not begin with this drone strike. They were already present, already shaping the environment around military bases, forces, and operations. So when the strike happened, it landed inside a landscape that was already volatile. Picture it like pressure building inside a system. One event does not create the pressure, but it can release it. Now here's where the story becomes more complicated. Because the warning from Iran was not just about the present moment, it was about the future, about what might happen if additional countries decide to participate in the conflict. Iranian officials specifically cautioned that foreign involvement could make the situation worse. Not just larger, worse, more unstable. And instability in a region already dealing with military tensions can ripple outward quickly. One country's involvement can invite another. That participation can lead to new responses. And before long, a situation that began with a limited set of actors can expand into something much broader. This is the kind of chain reaction leaders often try to prevent before it begins. A short sentence sometimes carries that weight. Stay out of the war. 5 words that signal concern about escalation. And at the center of the moment remains that drone strike on the base used by Italian forces. Think about the significance of that location for a second. A facility connected to a Western military presence in a region where Iran and Western countries are already facing tensions. That connection alone means any attack on such a site will immediately draw attention from multiple governments. And once those governments begin responding, the situation rarely remains contained. Now, there is a quiet truth about international conflicts that often goes unspoken. They rarely expand all at once. Instead, they grow step by step, one event, one response, one warning, And suddenly, leaders across several countries are calculating what comes next. That is the moment we are watching unfold here. A drone strike confirmed by Italian authorities, a warning issued by Iran, and a conflict that already sits inside a landscape of broader military tensions. The key question, the one hanging over everything, is what happens if other countries decide not to heed that warning? Because once additional actors step into a conflict, the dynamics change immediately. More forces, more decisions, more risks, and that possibility is exactly what Iran's warning was trying to address. Let me leave you with a short thought before we move forward. Sometimes the quietest warnings carry the loudest consequences. Hold that in mind, because the real significance of this moment may not lie only in the strike itself, but in how other countries respond to the warning that followed, and that is where the story becomes even more revealing. Because the next question is not just about what happened, the real question is this: why did Iran issue that warning at that exact moment? And the answer to that question tells us much more about the conflict unfolding behind the headlines. The warning from Iran did not come quietly. It came immediately after the drone strike on the base used by Italian forces, and its target was not a single country. It was directed broadly at any nation considering stepping into the conflict, and that distinction matters. Because when a government warns countries, when plural, it signals that leaders believe the situation around them has the potential to grow beyond its current limits. Now let's walk through what happened next. Italian authorities confirmed the strike on the facility used by their personnel. That confirmation established the basic fact at the center of the story. A drone had hit a base connected to Italian forces. That confirmation also placed the incident firmly into the international arena. Once a military base associated with a Western country is struck, the situation is no longer confined to local actors. It becomes a moment that governments, militaries, and diplomats across several capitals begin to assess. And in that moment of assessment, Iran delivered its message. And the warning was not wrapped in complicated language. Iranian officials said other countries should not join the conflict, but they also explained why. Foreign involvement, they said, could widen the war and increase instability. Those two ideas, widening the war and increasing instability, were presented together for a reason. Because in international conflicts, expansion and instability often move hand in hand. When additional countries enter a conflict, the number of military forces involved grows. Command decisions multiply. Strategic objectives begin to overlap or collide, and the environment becomes harder to control. Think about the way a conflict behaves when more participants arrive. Each country brings its own military structures, its own political calculations, and its own national priorities. Those priorities do not always align. The result is complexity. Now, Iran's warning pointed directly at that possibility. Officials were signaling that if other nations chose to participate, the conflict could expand beyond its current boundaries. That statement alone tells us something about how Iranian leaders view the situation. They are not speaking only about a single strike. They are speaking about the potential trajectory of the conflict. And this is where the timeline becomes particularly important. First, the drone strike occurs. Then, Italian authorities confirm the strike on the base used by their personnel. And almost immediately after that confirmation, Iran delivers its warning to other countries. That sequence suggests urgency, not a long diplomatic process, not a slow response, an immediate statement directed outward. Now imagine how such a warning travels through the diplomatic world. Embassies relay the message, military analysts review it, government officials begin discussing what it signals. Because warnings between nations are rarely interpreted only at face value. They are studied for tone, timing, and intent. And in this case, the message was tied directly to the idea of foreign involvement. Iranian officials said that additional countries entering the conflict could make the situation more unstable. The word instability carries a very specific weight in international relations. Instability means unpredictability. It means that events may unfold faster than governments can control them, and it means that actions taken by one actor can trigger responses from several others. Picture a situation where tensions are already present between Iran